Hey everybody, Owen Korzec here, singer, songwriter, and songwriting coach. And I just wanted to drop in and do a vid about the new Radiohead song and show you some of the cool aspects of it and how you can use those as influences for your own songs. So let's get into it. Alright, just gonna listen through it and basically do some commentary. So the way they start here is it's all strings, but they're using a cool technique called spiccato. It's like staccato bowing, but you bounce the bow on the string as you play it, so it creates that kind of like kind of sound. So I know everybody's probably curious about like how they get that string sound, so that's a big part of it. Also sounds to me like some of the instruments, like the lower ones, you can actually hear a wooden clicking, so that probably means they're using like the reverse side of the bow and actually using like the wooden part to get more of like a click 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 sound. You can kind of hear it in the lower strings. And maybe there's some pizzicato thrown in there. Basically they're layering on a bunch of random shit to create this multi-layered sound, but it's all got this staccato feel, and that brings it out a lot of energy into the song. Now the chords they're doing, that's super important. That's a huge part of the feel. They're doing sixth chords, so like this is F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, D sharp. They're moving those chords around, so they're going from an F sharp 6 chord to an E6 chord. And then there's a little bit on the second chord, you can hear a little bit of the 7th coming in, so it's almost like a... They've got this note in here, so the main chord is E, G sharp, B, C sharp, but they're adding a little bit of a D sharp. And I think it's only in the lower octave. So yeah, basically the verse starts just vamping on those chords, and they're giving it a decrescendo and a crescendo in that string part to really like give it some movement, so it's not just... They like more musicality in it, so... They're doing those kind of dynamic shifts. So now they start gradually bringing in that electronic hi-hat right away, so the listener started off with this totally acoustic sound, and then they're bringing in the electronic to be like, hey, we're Radiohead. We're not just gonna, like, nothing we do is ever completely acoustic. So that's a big part of their sound, is blending the acoustic and the electronic. Yeah, by the way, I am kind of going into like a lot of production things as well as just writing, because with Radiohead, the songwriting and the production are so interconnected you can't separate them. So the way they're doing these things, they're actually conceiving the ideas through the sounds. So a real good trick with, if you want to start writing more like Radiohead, try thinking of coming up with cool sounds first before you even try to write a part, because they'll inspire you to write all this crazy shit they do. And then they bring in the bass line, do, 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 and then they're using a gritty electronic sound to contrast the acoustic strings. So that bass part is just, it goes in octaves, so octaves are a really great trick for bass lines, so that... And my piano is horrendously out of tune. So that note, but you know, octave lower. So yeah, so they're kind of... So they're going an octave up on the F sharp, so F sharp, F sharp, and then they're going to the E right below it, and then dropping an octave next, so E, E, E. It creates a cool pattern as like a shape to the sound. So it goes up, and then like a little bit down, and then way down, and then a little bit back up. So it's almost like they're drawing a parallelogram with the bass line. Another cool trick they're doing is, with those string chords, they're not just going right from one to the next right on the bar line. They're actually if you listen closely, there's a bit of a bleed over from the chord before in some of the instruments. So that helps it kind of overlap more and more, like the transforming from one chord to the next rather than like directly jumping into it. Like that one there, so it's like you can already hear the bass going to the E, but the top chord is staying as an F sharp kind of thing. Although some of the strings are going down, some of the strings are staying there, so it fills out the chord even more. So that's a cool trick for getting really filled out chords, is chords layered on top of other chords. Like hybrid chords, if you study theory. And then here comes, Tom's very reserved kind of vocal style. So what I noticed the first time I listened to this is like, it really sounds like he's not trying to make you hear the words. It's like he wants to have that crypticness to this. And this also relates to like how they released the song. They, pulled everything off the internet and then like put it back. So like that's really a big part of their brand and their style is this like cryptic kind of quality. So that's why it makes sense for him to be kind of slurry with his enunciation and write all these vague lyrics and stuff like that. So let's jump into the lyrics for a bit. So, stay in the shadows, cheer at the gallows, this is a roundup, this is a low-flying panic attack. So, it's very, like, he's painting a picture, but he's not telling you what it is. Like, it's not like I went to the store. That's what a lot of, like, songwriters who are failing to get their vibe is they're not catching on to the vagueness of it. But then there's also the opposite problem, is that if you go too vague, it's not really painting the picture they are. So, like, pay attention to this. So, stay in the shallows, cheer at the gallows, this is a roundup, this is a low-flying panic attack. There's a juxtaposition here. So, panic attack, you would think of it as like a high-energy thing, but he's saying low-flying. He's not trying to point out the extremeness of it, he's trying to point out the danger of the kind of feeling. Avoid all eye contact, do not react, shoot the messengers. So avoid all eye contact, do not react. This is kind of like bringing in the guilt into the song. Like I feel like this song seems like it's an expression of his emotions. He's painting a picture for you based on his emotions. So his emotions may feature things like guilt or like anxiety or like a feeling like something bad's about to happen. But instead of just saying it, like, when I'm anxious, he's using all this imagery, like red crosses on wooden doors. Like, you can see that in your mind as you're reading it. If you float, you burn. Another, like, this stuff comes from the imagination, guys. So you really have to get very, very familiar with creative writing. So, like, I don't know, study poetry or study the lyrics he does. And just notice how he goes about it, because that's super important for their style. So sixpence. I actually want to look that up. I'm not sure what that is. Another problem that people tend to make when they write vague lyrics is they just go by the sound of it. They're like, oh, I do it sounds cool, and it doesn't mean anything. No, he's meaning everything he's saying. So I'm curious what this sixpence is all about. Coin worth 6 old pence, withdrawn in 1980. Sing the song of sixpence. So I feel like this is some reference that I'm not catching. But if you take it as the literal meaning, it's almost like, here's my 2 cents. Or like, sing this like song that doesn't really mean much. It's like an escapist song. And notice, here's something to notice. He's not writing about fucking heartbreak or any totally overdone shit. He's writing about whatever the fuck he wants. So don't feel like you have to write songs about, like, there are only these certain topics you can write about. Like, create your own story, like, create your own picture. So, like, this entire song, to the lyrics to me, it's entirely a picture, and it's tied in with emotion. So it's like picture, emotion, there, put together. So I'm going to keep going through this, try to get more insights out of it. Stay in the shadows, cheer at the gallows. Stay in the shadows, cheer at the gallows. Stay in the shadows. So stay in the shadows is like hiding. So, and then cheer at the gallows. So it's like hiding in praising bad things. It's almost like I get the sense of, what is it called, bystander syndrome or something like that. He's trying to paint this picture of like you're staying out of something, but you're still like, because you're hiding from something, it's just getting worse. Red Cross is on. If you float, you burn. Loose talk around tables. Abandon all reason. So that line, I think that's about being unfiltered. So like, kind of, like a lot of his songs are about like chaos. So like he's trying to paint a picture of like people starting to get carried away and saying like the wrong things that they shouldn't. Abandon all reason. Again, it's that chaotic kind of vibe. Okay, so back to the actual song itself. Some things about his melody here. So, when you write melodies over chord progression like this, you have to be careful about which notes are available and which aren't. So, stay in the shadows, cheer the gallows. So what's happening here is when he goes to the second chord, stay in the shadows, cheer the gallows. So he's actually going to a blues note there. So that's what it is. The scale he's using is almost like, normally the song would be like a Mixolydian scale for the first chord and then Lydian for the second. But on this first one, he's adding this flat 3 in there to give it like a bluesier sound. We're going to talk about that more later. This song has a lot of blues influences in it. There it is again. This is a roundup. So he's doing a lot on the E chord because that's more of an opportunity to, like, he doesn't have to be so centered into the key on that chord. And then also pay attention, there's a lot of space between his phrasing. So he's not going, stay in the shallows, cheering the gallows, this is a roundup. He's giving you space to take in the words and kind of enjoy the instrumental stuff behind it. So he's going, stay in the shadows. And then you're waiting for the next line, cheer at the gallows. There's this big wait in between. It's very effective. Let's talk about the drum beat. It's a linear drum beat, which means that he never has two of the same instruments happening at the same time. So I'll see if we can get different sounds. Like, yeah, this will be my hi-hat here. That's snare. That's kick. So they never intersect. That's like a cool trick for getting a beat that has this kind of like has this kind of pull to it rather than like it's got more like a that kind of vibe. So especially with the thick strings they have on there, it's good that he juxtaposed it with this really sparse kind of beat. So and then as far as the actual pattern, it's very syncopated. So he's got like these offbeat hi-hats, and then he kind of switches it. So for a while the hi-hats are offbeat, and then the hi-hats are on the beat, and the kick and the snare are off. So right there it switches. And then he switches it again to get that nice snare back in on the 4. Okay, so this chorus here. Here's what you probably didn't know about the chorus. He's using some blues influenced progressions here. Doesn't sound bluesy at all. It sounds very dark, but it's coming from blues concepts. So yeah, that works. First of all, he's switching to F sharp minor here. So the first chords there, they're all chords from the minor key. So 1 minor, flat 6 major, flat 7 major. So, and then he goes here, So this is a 4/7 chord. It's a very popular blues chord. So like if you did progression like, so he's using that in this. It's completely different style, but he's taking influence from the blues. So he's still staying in the F sharp minor for a while. These chords, those are all in there, but then he throws in this blues chords. So he's actually in Dorian mode. That's the scale he's going for, F sharp Dorian, in this part of the song. Notice they pulled back on a lot of that string stuff they were doing before. You have to add contrast in your songs, man. Like you can't. This is a mistake I made a lot, is trying to keep a full sounding trick through the entire song, but it's best if you pull it back in some areas. You can keep it going, but just pull back the volume and let something new come in to add interest. So now he's got those low strings, the ba ba ba. So I guess that would probably be like basses, maybe some cellos in there. So what he's doing, the vocal there is really interesting. He's going ba. He's like, he's doing a riff off it, but he's not really dead on the notes. So that's like kind of what adds to the eeriness of it. The riff is going F sharp, E, D, E, F sharp. So it's a weird riff for minor keys going down to the flat 7, but it kind of sounds weird if you were to nail it. So he's kind of going to the Dorian way. It's like somewhere in between. And then he's doing after that he does just a half step below it. So that's also out of the scale. So he's adding notes in the melody that are out of the scale, but they're quick. That's the key. If you're gonna do notes that aren't in the scale of the song, you got to keep them fucking quick, because you want a little bit of that pizzazz from like something out, but you don't want it to ruin the total melody. So like within this melody, he's going. It's very simple. He's just adding these little quick runs in there to give it a little more of a creepy vibe, but he could have just sang that note. Notice what's constant here. The drum beat stays the same. The rhythm of the strings is the same, but now they're starting to come in up here in the high octaves. And then they're even doing like a little. They're coming up a half step below that octave. That adds to the creepiness of the song. So when you write lyrics like that are really creepy and chaotic, you have to have a song that suits that well. So that's what they do very well. Now, second verse. This is really important. They didn't go back to what they did in the first verse. Now they're stripping out the drums. They're bringing in a completely new strings thing. They still have a little bit of that eighth note kind of rhythm in there, but it's completely arranged differently. And now the strings they're actually creating melodies. Like there's a counter melody in there, so I'm just trying to pick out certain notes there, but they're actually doing melodies in different octaves too, so it's kind of a couple of melodies just weaving in and out of the vocal. Because his verse melody is so sparse, he can get away with those other melodies kind of jumping around and going in different places and coming in and out with their own motifs in different octaves and stuff like that. Now here's where he tricks you, because in the other verse he doesn't go to these other chords, but now that you're in the second verse, he's got to mix it up. So he stays with the F sharp and the E thing, and it's still those kind of the voicings of the chords are changing. So let's see what he's got there. So now the E chord takes on more of the sound of like an E add 2 chord or add 9 chord. By the way, a lot of these theory things, if you don't know these terms, you kind of do have to learn them. So you know, I can teach you this stuff if you want. So I'll show you what that changes the verses. They go down to the flat 6 major chord, back to the flat 7 major. So you didn't see that coming because it wasn't in the previous verse. And then there's like a second verse here. And then there's another bass line they kind of added in here. It's just a very sparse kind of Colin Greenwood thing, like what he kind of does all the time, like do 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 doom doom doom. There's a lot of space left in there. So bass lines don't always have to be happening all the time. It can just be a few notes here or there. So now this time he's doing the verse originally as it was before because he needs that transition to go in the chorus. He has to go low flying panic attack. Da-na-da-na-da-na-na. So yeah, he's got, even in that like pre-chorus thing, he's got a lot of bluesy elements in the melody. So that chord there, that's the same chord I was talking about in the 4/7 chord that although I think they voice it a bit differently, but it's the 4/7 chord that adds an interest to what was happening before because it's kind of coming from a new key color. And then I love what they did here. So when they go to this C-sharp 6 chord, they have one of the string parts is doing an augmented 6th over it. So that adds to the creepiness because you usually don't hear a 6th and an augmented 6th in the same chord. Like, but Radiohead was like, yeah, let's do it, because sometimes when you put a lot of layers together, you can get something that's like theoretically incorrect, but it just sounds good because the instruments sound different. So like they can be clashing harmonically, but since their sound is different and their octave is different, the ear can hang on to one tonality and explore the other and not feel like they're clashing because they're not similar instruments. So that's a cool part of that string part they brought in there, the da 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 da. I want to catch this chord here because I feel like they're changing the voicing. So yeah, on this B chord they're going back to that like add 9 kind of chord. Like they might have a 7th in there, but it's mostly an add 9 kind of chord. And then another chorus. So yeah, most of the chorus is almost identical, maybe some vocal differences, little things here there, but once I get to here, now they're repeating that so they're hanging on that 4/7 chord, the B major, and then they're doing like a little bit of an A before it so they get the do-doom do-doom kind of blues feel, like A B A B. And then here comes the outro. So this song doesn't really have a bridge. It's long enough that you don't need one. So when you write a song where the first verse, chorus, that whole section, or if it's verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, if you do it that way, sometimes it can end up already being like 3 minutes long. So you don't have time to do a bridge and another chorus and a chorus. Like, so that's why a lot of these songs might just go to an outro, because the listener's attention span is already going around like 4 minutes or so or whatever. So why try to complete the cycle? Just you know, end it with an outro that's nice and interesting, and leave them with something interesting. And especially with this song, it's kind of gives it like a cliffhanger vibe that really works well with the lyrics. So now they're going back and forth between the flat 6 major, the D major, and the flat 7 major, which is the E major. So they're both tension chords, so they're not resolving until the very end. And when they do resolve, they bring in the noise in the strings, so they have to add that dissonance in there, keep that constant kind of eeriness in there. So that's how they do it. So if you listen after these chords, actually they bring it in even there. So, but they bring it in more at the end. You'll hear it. So towards the end there, some of the string players in the orchestra, from what I can hear, they're not even playing notes. They're just doing something percussive on their instrument. That's when I was talking about the thing with like the opposite side of the bow creating the wooden sound. I think some of them probably muted it, or maybe they were even tapping on the instruments. But they're, you know, since you got to this resolving chord, but still wants to make it sound creepy. So he's starting to introduce more dissonance with just strings just randomly doing other notes that they're not supposed to. So when you get a whole group of like musicians, like an orchestra, and they start doing notes that are out of the scales, and you just gradually start bringing in, it just starts adding chaos into the sound. But what they also do is they're taking out some of the players that were doing original chords and having them just do percussive stuff. So like the whole thing is basically collapsing. So it's like it's a resolve and a collapse of musicality, and they're just going into this noise thing. They're keeping the rhythm though, and that's why you like it, is because it's not completely unstructured. This whole song is extremely structured rhythm-wise. It has this heavy eighth note feel, da, 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 da. And it's got the pulsing drums behind it, to give you that like groove. I would guess the melody. Now for melodies, like I'm a big believer of like it should kind of be natural. Like you should know your way around your scales and just kind of improvise and come up with what sounds good over the music. I think that's how he wrote this kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go through and say like, oh, he did the flat 3 and the 2 here. It's because that stuff, like, it shouldn't be done so much with like theoretical intention. You should just have the ability to kind of, you know, sing the pitches you want and then figure out what sounds best. So now at the end there, they're doing the trick that a lot of new songs do. They just stop. And then you have the effects of the mix, like the reverb and all that, giving it this like tail off, like da 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 da. Gives it a little air at the end of it. So it's not just da 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 da. That might work for a different song, but for this song, the production is really important, the mixing and all that, because it's giving that breathing. It's kind of making it sound like you exhale at the end of the song, like you're building up with tension, then. So that's a cool trick if you want to do ending abruptly like that, is make sure there's a little bit of like studio effects, just kind of giving it a little bit of a delay under that. I'll play that again for you. You hear this like, it's like a wave at the end of the song. Okay, so that'll be enough. So yeah, I hope you liked what you saw of this video. I hope this gives you a lot of inspiration. The point is to understand what your favorite artists are doing, so that when you write songs, you can not like directly emulate them, but you can pull influences. You build this awareness of what your favorite artists are doing, so you can climb up to their level in your own unique way. Don't just do this with only Radiohead. Like for my music, my influences also included like, you know, Coldplay, Animal Collective, Death Cab for Cutie, Guster, and there was a period of time for me where I didn't know how to actually control the way I wrote songs. It was like I would just write something and it would just come out completely random, like a different style. So, like for a while, I was actually writing like more like background music kind of music. So, and I was stuck there for a while. And what ultimately got me out of it was seeing a songwriting teacher. The other thing is I never knew the process of writing a song. So like it was so helpful for me to have a songwriting teacher guiding me to like, okay, you can start with this first, and this will help kick off this idea and then that idea. As far as lyrics, I still had to do that completely from scratch. I was scared to write any lyric when I started. I just completely avoided it. So, like, it took a songwriting teacher to open me up. My songwriting teacher, he explained things to me in a few lessons, and I was like, okay, I understand the concept. Now I'm just going to practice. And so I just wrote all the time. I wrote during study halls at school. I wrote when I come home from school. I'm still writing. You know, I went to Berkeley, and that was all about songwriting. And so stuff like that. It differs for different students. So if you feel like understanding all this theory and understanding how your favorite artists are writing their songs, if you feel like that's way out of your league, and whenever you write songs, it just kind of sounds amateurish, and maybe even with your lyrics, they make you feel like you read them back and you kind of cringe a little bit. What I'm here to do is to help struggling songwriters overcome their hurdles. So I'm offering songwriting lessons. You can check out my website in the description below. And I really hope to help a lot of people get this kind of control over their writing, because it's the reason I was able to make my album. Someday we'll be gone, if not very long. We would trip in the cracks of home as we try to find a way home. I wouldn't have been able to make anything I'm proud of without, you know, knowing more about the theory and knowing more about, you know, how to write a good lyric that doesn't sound corny and cheesy. I went to Berklee College of Music and learned a shitload of music theory and all that. So this is where all these terms come from and why I can explain why these songs are the way these songs are doing all these things and the purpose of the chord changes and all that. So the advantages of that you'll get if you work with me is that your favorite songs, I can tell you, like I did here, I can tell you how they were made. And so it won't be a mystery for you anymore. You won't be like spending like 5 months trying to figure out, damn, how the fuck did Coldplay make that awesome progression? How come when I try to write something similar, it's not similar at all? And, you know, it's like you're aspiring to these artists that you want to sound like, and you want to be able to absorb influences from all kinds of different artists. But if you don't have the skill and the tools in the ear to get there, you can't get there. So there are two things to this. I can almost cheat your way in there by actually telling you how they did it. So that'll give you a kickstart to actually just get more of the results. But I also want you to build your ear on your own. I'm going to be challenging you too. I'm going to give you assignments that involve a lot of very careful listening and trying to figure out what the artist is doing. I may even make you cover certain favorite songs of yours just to make a replica cover and study what they're doing. So it's going to take work, but if you're interested in taking songwriting seriously, or if you even just want to get a basic understanding of it so you can just enjoy it as a hobby, whatever you're interested in, I can help you with it. One of the things I've always been very self-aware of is the priorities. when learning a skill. It's useless to try to give a songwriter all the theory right away without having them write a song. Like, I understand the benefit of just, getting the information to get you started, and then just writing and practicing, and then getting more information and then writing it. Like, you have to do and learn at the same time. So I guarantee you, with lessons with me, you'll find your songwriting improves a ton. So yeah, please check it out. And if not, I hope this video was helpful and entertaining, and I hope it makes you happy that you didn't have to just wait for Radiohead to not tell you how they wrote this song. That someone can actually tell you how a song is written, like famous songs, so you can learn from their expertise and make songs that are just as great. Please leave a comment if you want me to do this kind of breakdown with another song. Just request whatever you want, and yeah, I'll be sure to take a listen to it and break down everything that's happening well. I can do this with any song. There's no song that's too hard for me to understand. And most of all, I just hope you enjoyed this video. So see you next time. Subscribe and let me know what you want in future videos. I'm here to help people as much as possible. Cheers.